probably say, oh, where else do you teach? What else do you do? And then you can tell them, but don't plan to pitch anything if that doesn't feel good to you. Because in this moment, this thing that we're trying to get you over this hump so that you can kind of get back on track, in this moment is not about selling. It's about getting you back on track. So...
Hi friend, I'm super excited you're here today because I have such a fun interview for you. I interviewed my biz bestie, Jessica Kinsey. I recorded this interview in our shared office and it was such a special time because I asked her, Jessica, how do you get me refocused when I come in and I think things are just going so wrong or I feel like I'm not making progress on my goals? How do you get me recentered and refocused? Because she does that for me all the time. And then she took that information and helps you get refocused. So she took that and had an example of a yoga teacher. So she is here to talk to you today about how you can get refocused. Whether it's a mid-year check-in or you're just making progress on your day-to-day goals, I want you to know that this is how you can get refocused. She talks about specific questions that you can ask yourself when you're feeling these awkward feelings of, it's not working, I need to start all over again, because these feelings are real. And another thing I want to highlight is that Jessica isn't a yoga teacher and she's my biz bestie. So while I encourage you to find yoga teacher friends that you can work on your business together, it doesn't necessarily have to be a yoga teacher. It can be anyone who owns a business, because Jessica and I really help each other out because we're in two totally different business spaces. So I want to encourage you to think outside the yoga space as well. Jessica is a social impact strategist, and she works with nonprofits and social entrepreneurs to maximize their reach and their impact. She inspires me every single day, and I know she's going to inspire you in this interview. So let's jump right in. Thank you so much for being here, Jessica.
Of course, I'm happy to.
Yes. So as my biz bestie, we're going to be talking about goals and how you help me get refocused on a daily basis most of the time. But tell everyone else a little bit about you.
Yeah. I am Jessica Kinsey, the founder of Prodigy & Company, and we are a social impact strategy firm, which is a fancy way of saying we work with nonprofits and social entrepreneurs, helping them figure out how to earn money with their programming and their products and their services, whatever it is that they're doing, so that they can do more good in the world and be a sustainable, scalable organization for themselves.
I love it. I love it. She says it so much more eloquently than I do. When I describe Jessica, I say she is great with money and finding it. So specifically when she works with a nonprofit or any other business, she is great with finding revenue streams. Yeah. So she's a lot of fun to work with, but the best thing she does for me is helping me get refocused. So in July, I've been talking all about goal setting and achievement and really getting refocused when we feel a little off. Yeah. So in July is kind of that 6-month reset button.
Right.
And I would love to talk just a little bit about how to get refocused and really how you get me refocused when I feel a little off course.
Yeah. Kind of two parts to that question, which obviously align, because advice I would give to you is advice that could be given to anybody. But I'll talk a little more broadly about what I would tell to somebody else and then kind of how that might look for us working together. I think the biggest thing for me when I have conversations with people who are feeling a little lost, but sometimes when it's sort of like I'm going down this path, but I don't know how or where, and things aren't really working the way I want them to, and so I'm not really sure. The first thing I always tell people is to just stop and go spend some time alone. And sort of disconnect and from, computers and technology and as much as you can from your business, and try to reconnect with yourself and thinking, it sounds cliche, right? But like, why are you really doing it? Who are you really trying to serve? What is your purpose in your work? So whether that's as a consultant, as someone running a nonprofit, as a yoga teacher, why are you doing what you're doing? And is the path you're on now and what's happening now fulfilling that purpose for what you want to do, and is it also fulfilling you? And then trying to start to kind of dig into if some of the answers to those questions are no, what does that mean? If they're yes, what's working, what's not working, all of that. that's a thing I think you can start to do on your own. And sometimes we need to just reset and rethink things. And that in and of itself is enough to re-energize us, because we're like, oh yeah, I actually am fulfilling my purpose. I really enjoy what I'm doing. Yes, I obviously need to maybe fill more classes or get more clients or whatever that looks like. But you feel good about the overall path. Sometimes you don't necessarily feel good about the overall path, and then, you have to do some additional work there. And that's not to say that, going and sitting by yourself for 30 minutes or something is going to totally, you're going to have it all figured out and it's going to solve the problem. But I think you have to kind of start with yourself, and then you have to take it to somebody else. Because if you sit for too long and just spin your wheels on all the things that you feel like are going wrong, number one, there are probably not that many that are going as wrong as you think they are. I know you and I have had these conversations for each other all the time. When one of us will come in and be like, it's falling apart, and the other one is like, okay, well, tell me the details, and then you're like, one of those 5 things is kind of teetering, it's not everything is falling apart. So taking that to someone else who you trust and can have an open, honest conversation with, and sometimes just you talking out loud to someone else can help you kind of figure out those next steps. Ideally, you're working with someone who knows enough about what you're talking to, someone who knows enough about what you're doing, whether that's in a Biz Bestie situation, or if you have a coach or you're a part of a group program or something like that, you can get that feedback that you need to actually start to put a plan in place.
This is why. This is why we have the office right here, because I walk in and I will think, I'm burning it to the ground, I'm starting over, and Jessica is able to help me, and I'm able to help her. One thing that really stood out to me, and that was, it's really you've got to get clear with what's going on and understand what's going on in yourself, but then taking it to someone else is really the biggest deal.
Right.
Because when you walk in and you have to really say out loud what you think is going badly or wrong or you're unsure about, it's usually not nearly as bad as we have it in here.
Yeah, so that was sort of the second point of that, which is why I said it's a little bit different when it's you and I, because we kind of already know this. And so typically by the time you and I come together, we're at that second point of, this is all the stuff I've been thinking about. This is what I think I'm doing right, I'm doing wrong, where it's a mess, where it's working. And then we talk through that with each other and help sort even more sort of the good from the bad, and then say, okay, what do you want your next step to be? Or what do you feel like makes sense? What do you feel like definitely doesn't make sense? And you can start to talk through that with someone else.
Absolutely. So I'm going to link to our Biz Besties Staycations.
Oh, yeah.
So Jessica and I do this thing where we go every 6 months, and we go somewhere outside of this office and outside of our home office, and we go and we strategize, and I think that's really important. So you and I work in this way, and it's awesome, but not everyone has what we have, which I want everyone to have what we have, but not everyone does. And so if they don't, if our dear yoga teacher friends watching this don't have a Biz Bestie, of course we want to encourage them to get one, to find one. But you have actually said this best, is that doesn't happen overnight. So one thing is, we found each other and we really started working together on little projects and doing these things, and the Biz Bestie relationship has, our bond has grown. So of course that takes time. Okay, so let's take an example of a yoga teacher.
Okay.
We're going to name her Jane for today. And Jane has the goal, and she had the goal 6 months ago, of filling her classes consistently.
Okay.
So for her, this means 8 to 10 people in her class on a consistent basis. She is now 6 months into this, and she's grown her classes, but not consistently. She's not feeling like she has achieved that goal, and she's really feeling down on herself and the progress. But she's ready. She's still ready to make the next 6 months of her business grow. What would you tell her to do that she can do today?
In that situation where you have a very sort of clear, kind of SMART goal, to borrow the term from corporate America, you've got it, it's measurable, you know what you're trying to get to and all of that. I would say sit down and evaluate everything that you've done. So if Jane has put together kind of a marketing strategy on paper, or at least in her head, where she said, I'm posting 5 times a week on Instagram, and I'm sending an email newsletter, or, whatever 3 or 4 or 5 things that Jane is doing, to sit down and evaluate those and say what's been working and what hasn't. So if there's any way, depending on how you're marketing and what you're doing, this is sometimes easier said than done, in the type of space where you're inviting someone to come to a class, you don't necessarily know what got them there. But if you can start to figure that out, then you know what's working. So you can double down on the efforts that have been working and maybe cut back so you can save time on efforts that haven't been working. The other thing I would suggest, so that you can maybe do sort of on your own, kind of looking at analytics and stuff like that. The second piece of that, which ties in but can give you additional information, is to talk to the folks who are actually showing up to your class. You know, how did you hear about this? Where did you find out about me? How many, or this class, how many times have you been? You know, what is it that keeps you coming back? So especially if you have some regulars, it's been a while since I've done yoga regularly, but I know when I did, you get to know the students and the teachers, and the other students in the room get to know each other. So if you have some regulars, you know, might be a little easier to ask, you know, what keeps you coming back? What do you like? And even, you know, what could be better, that can give you some feedback on your class and what you're doing. But using that you can actually, you know, take it and use it as a testimonial, but just generally using that feedback to think about how you talk about what you're doing. So if you have someone that comes back regularly every week because she really enjoys the fast-paced music with great playlists and it's a great workout, obviously making that up because I don't, you know, depending on what you're teaching, that's something you can talk more about the class, and because maybe you can find other people who are interested in that, where you've got great music and it's fast-paced and it's a good workout and all of that. So you can use it as testimonials, but you can also just use it in how you think about your marketing. So evaluate what's working and what's not working, and double down on what is working. And if everything feels a little meh, then I would say try something new. It's hard to give any kind of advice or recommendations sort of off the cuff without knowing what anybody's doing. But just thinking about how you get creative. Have you put flyers up locally? You know, what's something that you haven't done yet, and try it out and see how that works.
I like the idea of trying something new, because the thing, like, so much of this comes down to a mental frame of mind too.
Right.
Of, I feel like I am failing. How can I not feel that way?
Right.
And so when you're in that feeling of like, I really don't like what's happening right now, I feel like I'm not achieving my goal. I've worked with so many yoga teachers, and I say, okay, let's get you past that mental hump that's going on right now. And oftentimes it's getting creative.
Yeah. The mindset piece of it and the mentality of feeling like things are failing or falling apart is really, really hard. And that's definitely one of the places where having someone to talk to is super helpful. If you don't have that person already, or you don't have that connection, obviously thinking about, you know, whether it's Facebook groups or just other groups where you can just start to build those relationships and talk to folks who are doing similar things as you is really helpful. But when you don't have that space for yourself, think about how you can get creative, and think about, I'm sure everyone listening to this has heard you say this before, think about what's going to be fun. Because it's when you're feeling that, in that sort of like failure, stuck, out of control space, it's pretty negative. So if you can do something that allows you to have fun, that can help kind of flip that a little bit. Even if it's something that ultimately isn't super successful in terms of getting people to class, just doing something that makes you feel really good and can also maybe give you some visibility. So, you know, offer a free class in the park on Saturday, or something that isn't maybe, you know, directly tied to, can I get more people into my class? But what would be really fun for you in this moment? If you think back to your why and your purpose and who you're trying to help and what are you trying to do, what can you do to just do more of that, so that you feel that you are making a difference, that you're being purposeful, that you're being successful, even in that way, even if that way isn't bringing money in right now, which I totally understand really sucks when you're really concerned about getting money in. As business owners, we have all been there. But if you can tap back into that purpose and that why, even in the smallest way, I think that starts to help overcome the mindset. Because you at least say, okay, this is why I'm doing this. This is meaningful. Like, I need to keep going, as opposed to feeling stuck. When you can tap back into that purpose in a very real way, not just thinking about it, but then go do something that you know, brings that out.
I love that. I love the idea of taking the feeling of failure into the feeling of fun.
Yeah.
That is such a fun thing to think about, and how I'm teaching how to market authentically and have fun. So I do talk about that a lot. It's easier to market something when it's fun.
Right.
So it's easy to talk about that free yoga class in the park, because it's a lot of fun. And then the huge benefit that I see from the marketing side is when you have fun, and maybe it's a free event, or maybe it's just posting on social media, whatever it is, you're having fun marketing whatever that thing is.
Right.
And if you bring people in then you're going to get more people. However, so if you bring people to that class in the park,
right,
you can invite them to the class,
right.
and it can be tied to your goal of getting people in the class, but you're going to be having so much fun doing
right.
it that it's going to show your personality and have a lot of fun through that whole process. So
right.
yeah, mindset, done.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be, so whatever class you do normally, you're just going to offer it for free in the park. It can be, you're going to offer puppy yoga. Like, it could be something completely different, but it just sounds fun and interesting and you want to do it. And even if 2 people show up, it will still be a success to you because you got to have a lot of fun with people and their puppies or whatever it is. And yeah, obviously you can still then invite them to your class, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that specific thing. You know what I mean? I mean, obviously keep it probably tied into yoga or meditation or something along those lines so that it makes sense to invite someone to the next thing. But the point is, it doesn't just have to be, oh, let me do the thing for free to help some people. It just needs to be kind of wrapped up in living out that purpose or the thing that fulfills you about the work that you do. And let me add just one more thing.
Bring it.
Because I know I felt this way, and I have had conversations because I do a lot of work in the nonprofit space with folks that have felt this way when it comes to selling. Oh, so if I host a free class because I want to have fun, but then I sell to them at the end, am I doing it for fun or am I doing it to sell? And then you can get even further caught up in your head. If you are feeling that way, and if that's something that makes you uncomfortable, don't sell. Don't invite them to the class. At least don't have that plan going in. More often than not, someone will probably say, oh, where else do you teach? What else do you do? And then you can tell them, but don't plan to pitch anything if that doesn't feel good to you. Because in this moment, this thing that we're trying to get you over this hump so that you can kind of get back on track, in this moment is not about selling. It's about getting you back on track. So if that makes you feel weird or uncomfortable and you just want to go in for the purpose of serving, do that. That's totally fine. Because again, you will feel more comfortable, you will have more fun, more of your personality will come across. More than likely someone's going to ask you about what you do, and then it will be very natural for you to tell them. But don't have marketing flyers or a planned pitch or anything like that if that doesn't feel good to you. Because in this moment, it's about getting past feeling like crap and starting to feel good about your work again. So you don't want to add on to that by mixing back in something that's going to give you those sort of like, I don't know feelings.
Right. Oh, I'm so glad you said that. And this is why we balance each other out so well, because I'm always thinking, okay, you're going to host this free event. It's going to lead to this paid thing, because that is a great marketing tactic to use because it brings the right people into the thing. But Jessica is right, and you can just have fun. You can do something just for fun. You don't have to sell, but you're totally right in that most people are going to ask about what do you do outside of this, because it's going to be such a fun class or fun offering of some sort that they're going to want more from you. So it's going to be a natural and a little more organic.
Yeah. It's really just about feeling comfortable, feeling confident, having fun. But to your point about marketing, like, don't make this a monthly thing where you do a free class and don't ever tell people about what else you do, right? So they're definitely, because I have the same conversation with people a lot, and I'm like, no, just like tell people about your stuff at the end. And there comes a point where we all have that fear of selling ourselves that we have to overcome. And so just saying, oh, it doesn't make me feel good today, so I'm not going to do it over and over and over again is not progress, and it's not going to help you grow your business. But again, we're talking about kind of a specific moment of, I'm not sure I want to keep doing this sucks, I feel like I'm failing, I don't know how to move on, and you've got to find a way just to have fun.
I love it.
Don't just use that as an excuse forever, because that's not helpful.
Yes. I like that. I like that a lot, because it really does get you refocused, which is what we're talking about.
Right.
When you're not feeling like things are moving, it gets you over that hump, and then you can actually start moving things forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if someone is sitting here today watching this and saying, all right, I'm going to take the next hour because I'm in this funk. I feel like I am not making progress on the goal that I said I was going to make progress on.
Yeah.
We've all been there. Jessica, what do I do in the next hour of my day to help me get refocused?
I think the best thing to do, if you can, is go talk to somebody. Go find your biz bestie, your accountability partner, if you have a coach, if you're in a group, whatever that looks like for you. Because talking through it will help you figure out your next steps. And I would say, if it resonates with you, to think about what's the fun thing I can do to sort of tap back into the purpose. I think that's always great. For you, maybe you need to go through that logical step of kind of evaluating your efforts and seeing what's working and what's not. But if at all possible, do it with somebody else so that you're getting that feedback, you're getting that accountability, and then they can help hold you accountable, not just in the conversation and talking you through things and talking you off the ledge of burning things to the ground and saying, let's wait on that, let's try these things first. Put a plan in place then to follow up with them. Even if it's an email check-in or a Voxer or, a phone call or grab a coffee, whatever, in 1 week or in 10 days, these are the 2 things maybe that I'm going to have done based on this plan, and then check back in with that person. Figure out what that needs to look like for you. If you can get over the next hump of, if you can get up to 8 people in your class in 2 months, by the end of the year you want to be at 10 people in class every time, what does that look like to help someone kind of hold you accountable and give you that feedback and that encouragement to keep going along the way?
That's great. And I'm sitting here thinking, okay, well, what if they don't have that person, right? Which I hope you do. I hope everyone does. If you don't have that person, I would say go find that person. Right. Figure out who that is. And since I work with so many yoga teachers, I often run into this situation where I'm talking with a yoga teacher and they say, I know the other yoga teachers in town, but we don't work together. So I have encouraged everyone, this is not the first time they're hearing this, that reach out to a local yoga teacher and connect with them in some way.
Yeah.
And just start working on that and saying, hey, let's work on our business together. It's not the same business. We both have our own thing, but we can help each other. And another thing is sometimes people are uncomfortable doing that in the local area. So I say, like you, get in a Facebook group. Right. I have my own, obviously, so you can jump in mine. And post. Mine is totally open for that, and saying, here's what I'm struggling with.
Right.
I'm really struggling with this today, because most likely there's someone else online right then.
Right.
That can help them right away if they don't have a person in the local area like we have each other.
Yeah. I would agree. I mean, I think you obviously have to balance still figuring out how to get over the hump while finding the person. So as those things that you can do on your own. I would also say, and I fully understand the benefit of it being another yoga teacher, and absolutely like getting in a group full of yoga teachers. Maybe it's not a one-on-one person like you and I have. But I would also say it doesn't have to be a yoga teacher, especially when you're just getting started. If you're just looking for somebody else who is running a business, I would say it has to be a business owner of some sort, because otherwise they won't really understand. Obviously someone in a kind of service-based consultation type business would make the most sense. There'd be the most direct correlation there. But sometimes, and I will not try not to get on my soapbox about this, but all business owners struggle with cash flow, with getting new clients, with how, dealing with employees and paying employees if you have them. All of those things are pretty universal across being a business owner, whether you're a solo person doing your own thing or you're starting to grow a team. We don't talk enough about that as business owners, that we have struggles. We share all of our successes. Signed a big client, filled my group program, whatever it is. We don't post things like, not sure I'm going to meet payroll this week, because obviously there are reasons you don't want to do that.
Right.
But if you can find someone to have a conversation with, what you realize is that it's a pretty universal thing and you're not alone. And sometimes that in and of itself is enough to help sort of keep you going while you're figuring out the other stuff. Because when you think that you're alone, when you think that you're the only person who's ever struggled to fill their classes, struggled to, pay their rent or their employees or whatever, it feels so isolating, and whatever failure you're feeling for not reaching your goals, you just like double down on it when you think that you're alone. So at a minimum, that could be a friend or a cousin or an aunt or an uncle, or and it doesn't have to be someone you like necessarily create this long ongoing accountability relationship with. But at a minimum, if you can find someone who knows what you're going through, just to have that conversation, that can be so helpful for your mindset.
Yes. All the praise hands. All the praise hands right now. I definitely agree with it. Doesn't have to be a yoga teacher, for sure. I focus on that because I want them to be connected and to help each other, which is really great. But you and I don't have the same business.
Right.
We do not have the same business at all. But we share an office and we help each other. And it's just wonderful that we have found each other. And I wish it upon everyone that ever owns a business, because you're right. We don't talk about it enough. I try even to talk about it. It's on my mind all the time, and I still don't talk about it enough.
It's hard, and it's a really hard thing when and this is why finding someone, even if it's just a one-on-one conversation that's not in a Facebook group, because I also understand going into a Facebook group and saying, here's where I'm struggling. You're going to talk about your marketing efforts struggling with your marketing efforts or that kind of thing, you're obviously not going to say whether or not, like, how you're feeling about paying rent or something like that. And not that you just jump into a conversation with someone you don't know about those level of things. But when you can have just a one-on-one conversation, you know, and even talk about it broadly, is like, you know, cash flow's a little tight this month or whatever. I don't know of any business owner who's not had at least a month or two where it's been like, oh, I'm not sure how it's going to work out. So you can do that in kind of that more personalized space. And then obviously if you find someone, it's great to have someone doing something very similar to you, because there is so much sharing you can do in that space. Right. I mean, I know you've gotten really connected with Shannon, and as someone who's working with yoga teachers, there's so much that you guys have learned from each other that you and I haven't necessarily, because we are in different spaces. Right. But I can also bring a totally outside perspective into what you're doing with yoga teachers, and the same for you, for me, because we're not in the same space. Right. So there's benefits to both.
So true. So true. Have multiple biz besties. That's what we're saying actually today. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here today. Yeah. This was so much fun. I loved having you in our office together, right? And here today. So thank you.
Yeah. Anytime.
That next best step. You know, I always focus on what is your next best step. And I would say the next best step is to find someone that you can just talk to. It doesn't need to be a biz bestie today. Right. It's just starting to connect and have someone on call, right? Like Jessica's on call for me, that I can always say, I am having a really tough day and I need to get refocused. Because even if the goals are like, I'm just rocking and rolling and crushing the goals, right? Which doesn't happen all the time. But when that's happening, I've still got to get refocused. Right. So it can be good or not so good. I've still got to get refocused every 6 months with you in a room together so we can figure this out, because I want to make sure my business is going in the right direction, have a stopping point and check in. And I think refocusing way more than every 6 months is important, but having that scheduled time is really important. So I would say finding someone.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here today. Yeah. This was so much fun. I loved having you in our office together and here today. So thank you.
Yeah, anytime.
Okay, so you've heard from Jessica. You heard how we went back and forth on how to get refocused. And so your next best step is to start talking to someone else. That person doesn't have to be declared your biz bestie right away. But what you want to look for is someone that you can call on a rough day and say, I need to get refocused, or I'm having a rough day with whatever is going on. That's who you want to talk to. You want to talk to someone who's going to help you get out of that funk or celebrate the exciting things that are happening in your business. So go get after it. And until next time, give yourself permission to hit that reset button to get refocused and grace along the way. See you soon.